Hi there, welcome students and alumni. I'm Heather Elliott Familaro, and I'm the department head for digital media and design. And I'm thrilled to host this special event in conversation with two incredible DMD alumni, Juanita Austin and Kat Boyce. Today, you will have the opportunity to hear about their career journeys and how their experiences and lessons learned may help our current and future students in the DMD program. We've prepared a few questions in advance, but we also would love to have any questions from students in our virtual audience. So please do type any questions into the chat box for Kat and Juanita, and we'll ask those questions at the end. At the conclusion of the program, students will also have the opportunity to join either Juanita or Kat or both, you can switch, into a breakout room for a chance to network and ask some one-on-one questions. So now it is my pleasure to introduce today's panelists. We have Juanita Austin. Juanita is a New London native who graduated with the Bachelor of Arts in Digital Media and Design with a concentration in Web and Interactive Media Design in 2015, who also had a focus in human rights, digital marketing, and communications while studying at UConn. She also worked as a as a photography assistant at UConn, a web and visual communication specialist, and a marketing coordinator. So she's great to talk about all those incredible on-campus job experiences while you're at school. After graduation, she worked as a gallery associate in New London for 3 years and then a creative technologist at the public library. In 2019, she founded Cultured AF, a startup arts and entertainment social hub and creative platform made of artists and creatives producing content, building community, and curating unique experiences that bridge the gap between the art world and Black culture. Culture AF's mission is to celebrate and support underrepresented artists while building a community of lifelong arts enthusiasts. She currently works for the Connecticut College Art and Art History Department and for the Connecticut Office of the Arts. Juanita identifies herself as a curator, a cultural producer, and a social practice artist. Welcome, Juanita. And then we also have Kat Boyce. Kat Boyce grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, where at a young age, she began taking photos with her mother's film camera. Compelled by her passion for visual storytelling, she pursued a BFA in photography and a minor in digital arts from the University of Connecticut. After graduating in 2015, Boyce helped to spearhead a new community arts effort in her hometown. This led to her work with Bristol All Heart and then to her role as the marketing and events assistant at the Central Connecticut Chamber of Commerce. During that time, Kat realized the power of bringing the arts, community, and marketing together. So then Kat pursued an MFA from the Digital Media and Design program, focusing on digital media business strategies, where she completed her thesis titled Color the Conversation, a mental health immersive photography project in 2019. Since graduating, she's worked for the Advertising Council, To Write Love on Her Arms, AMP Agency, where she worked with such clients such as Waymo, AAA, Merachin, and Shop and Stop, and Digital Media Connecticut. Kat is currently on the SFA Advisory Alumni Committee and is also a longtime supporter of Husky-thon, UConn's 18-hour dance marathon, and she also previously served as the Marketing and Communications Chair for that Husky-thon alumni network. So welcome, Kat. So let's get started. You both have really inspirational jobs right now. Can you describe what you do in your current position and talk a little bit about your company?
Sure, I'll start. So I have a few different roles right now that I'm currently doing. So I'll start with Cultured AF. That's the arts organization that I started back in 2019. And so what that is it's really a place for artists in my area to gather and produce content together, particularly focusing on Black and Black queer artists. And so we do everything from producing events to producing music videos. So we had a space called Cultured Studios that we ran, that was an art gallery as well as our performance venue. And so we had monthly open mics, we did music events, poetry slams. This past summer, I ran an arts and farmers market here in New London. So just a wide variety of different activities that bring people together to just really celebrate the arts. And so we work with artists across the state. We have a big network in New Haven and Bridgeport. We've had people come from New York, Rhode Island for our different events. So it's been a really amazing experience over these last 2 years with Cultured AF. And so, as I mentioned, I also work at Connecticut College in the Art and Art History department as a department assistant. And then I work contractually with the Connecticut Office of the Arts, helping to produce events and community engagement with them.
Building that community, love it. So I currently work as a digital product manager at the Ad Council. Started this position in June, and essentially in that role, I get to help execute all of our digital product across our campaigns. Right now, I mainly manage websites and campaign toolkits, but we also have games and chatbots and other digital experiences that we offer for our campaigns. I'm working currently on Seize the Awkward campaign, which is our teen suicide prevention campaign, type 2 diabetes prevention, high school equivalency, Release the Pressure, which focuses on bringing Black women together to talk about their heart health, and the flu vaccine, which actually just launched early last week, and another one that is launching next week. So make sure to check out the Ad Council's website next week if you're curious to see that launch. In this role, I get to work really collaboratively, much like when I was in DMD, with designers and copywriters, the account team, developers, analysts, and really create that digital magic together. Some of the most well-known campaigns that the Ad Council has worked on include Friends Don't Let Friends Drive Drunk, Smokey Bear, Love Has No Labels, STEM Education, and we've done an Amazon Alexa app to combat food waste previously. We're really where creativity and cause come together, and that's what inspired me to work at the Ad Council. I also do some freelance photography on the side, get to work with To Write Love on Her Arms occasionally to help with their product photography, and some other work that I like to do for artistic purposes.
Well, I love how both of you are so engaged in so many different things. It's not as simple in your careers as like one path and even one job, because you're still doing a lot of outreach work in the community and other kind of side things, photography, curating, et cetera, that are part of your whole person. But what steps did you take within your career to get to the position that you're working in right now? How did you get this particular job?
You want to start off, Kat, this time?
Sure, yeah. So as Heather was saying, it was not a linear path. I had many jobs prior to my current position, but I had actually applied to the Ad Council back in early 2020, pre-pandemic, for a role that wasn't as good of a fit as the one that I currently have. It was for an influencer assistant position, and I didn't even get an interview at that point in time. I went through, and I was actually pulling up my Excel last night from job applications, and I had over 100 applications that I had sent out and was interviewing. A lot of rejections, very few interviews, and this was even before the pandemic hit. But I had followed the Ad Council on Instagram, and I knew I really wanted to work for a company that had the same values as me and really merged creativity and causes and used communication for good. And I had saw that they were having a Young Professionals 101 event to learn more about the Ad Council and some opportunities in the work that they do. And I attended that event, and afterwards I kept, refreshing their career page kind of weekly at that point, because I knew I really wanted to be in their organization and was looking for an opportunity that would fit my skills. And I ended up applying. I was currently working as an analyst, so it was definitely a pivot. And I decided to apply, and I think it did help that I networked prior and had talked to some of the individuals who had already worked at the Ad Council through that networking event. So when they say networking is key, it really does help and go a long way. And my current manager had actually also worked on a mental health website prior to working at the Ad Council. So we were able to connect on that interest. And she had reached out to Write Love on Our Arms, where I had volunteered after graduating. So it was nice to have those connections and being able to network. But it definitely wasn't a linear process, and had to go around twice in order to get the job.
And how about you, Juanita?
Yeah, so I'll focus on my role at Cultured AF and curating and producing and how I got into this space. So I definitely, as Kat said, non-linear, and did not see myself like doing this when I had graduated from UConn at the time. And so how I really got here was after a year, after I graduated, I was still working at UConn. And so commuting from New London, which is like 45 minutes to an hour. And so one of the motivators for me getting the job at Hygienic Art Galleries was really just starting out for convenience. So it was a space that was in my hometown, closer to where I am, so I don't have to commute as much. And then I get to be around art. So that was really just where I started out with, where I'm like, this looks like a fun job. A lot of the role that I started out doing was, as a gallery associate, was doing a lot of the marketing. So in that role, I handled I handled all of the print and digital media for the gallery, completely revamped their website, helped with a complete rebrand of the gallery. But then also other things that came along with it was helping with art installations. I got the opportunity to curate my first exhibition there. That's where I started. I took over their poetry and open mic event that they did. And so working in that space, I started gaining these other experiences and skills that I really fell in love with, the curating and producing events. And so after about 3 years, I really started wanting to develop myself more in this gallery space, in the museum space. I didn't really see myself growing in that particular gallery. And so that's when I really started thinking about how I can like develop more professional skills, start looking for other opportunities. But unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to find like curating jobs without having a master's degree, right? And so that was very difficult. So I started just thinking about non-traditional ways that I can do this work. And so it got to a point where I was just, you know what, I'm going to take a leap of faith. And I actually ended up just quitting my job at Hygienic, which is not something I typically do. I always have something lined up before I move on to something else, but it just felt right in that moment. And so a perfect example is that literally, I'm not exaggerating, I printed out my letter of resignation, and a minute later, I got a text from actually another UConn alum, one of my best friends, and she's like, hey, like, I know you're super busy, but if you're like available, there's this job opportunity for you. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not busy, because I just literally quit my job. So in that time, it was just doing social media for this startup brand that was happening. But that really gave me a little bit of a period to like work remotely and sort of like figure things out after quitting Hygienic. And that was really a good sign that I was moving in a good direction. So I did that, I believe, in like April of like 2018. And by January of 2019, that's when I started Cultured AF. And so I knew I wanted to run my own gallery space, run my own events, and particularly focus on Black artists and queer artists, because particularly in my area in Southeastern Connecticut, that's really a group that doesn't really get so many opportunities in the arts. And it was really important for me to bring that experience to people in New London. And so that was really sort of the motivation for me to start my organization. And then within like 4 months, I found a space and just dove right into leasing it and opening the actual gallery, and just went head first into producing events. And the community was super receptive. My friends and people just really supported it, and we built this really strong community and network. And so then over these past few years, as Kat mentioned, networking has just been super important, and not even just in the formal sense, but in the informal, where you're really building true relationships. So just going to other arts events is networking, meeting other people, talking and making real connections has been super important for me for all the opportunities that I've gained over these last few years in this space. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey.
Well, as a follow-up, Anita, Juanita, for getting the entrepreneurial spirit, to go out on a limb, like talk a little bit about that risk, because that's like to go from having a traditional sort of 9-to-5 job and then jumping into this big adventure. How did that get started specifically, and what were some of the fears and excitements of that?
Yeah, that was really interesting. I think a lot of it comes from my parents, who are just always had some kind of business or something going on. So it was something I was very familiar with. And I also have super supportive family. And so, when I told them my ideas and decisions, they were just behind me 100%. So that was really, really helpful, and it gave me the encouragement to do it. I'm actually, I look back on it, in that first year that I started coaching, I didn't actually have another job the way I have 10 jobs now. So I'm I don't even know how I got through that first year of business, just doing that. But I knew in order to be successful, for me, I personally needed to focus 100% on it to really just get it off the ground and get my vision and out there. And so I'm glad I took that first year to really just dive deep into it. But I think it's really the support from friends and family that really just helped me that first year and gave me the encouragement. And after I did that first event, our first poetry and open mic, which is sort of it's called Tokyo stuff, but not the other version. So that's the name of the event. And so that became our signature sort of event that kept us alive. And that event was packed every month, pre-COVID. And so that was such a huge encouragement when that first event sort of launched, and I saw the reception of people just really loving the space and loving the experience. And so that kept me really going. There's definitely moments where I'm why am I doing this? What was I thinking? But again, every time that I'm in the space with people, that's really gives me my motivation and energy to keep going and know that I can get through all the bumps and hurdles that come along the way.
That's amazing. You're both passionate, thinking about people, right? Because I think I know Kat very well, and Juanita, I'm getting to know you more, but people is really at the core of both of you. And you're both passionate about making a difference and impact in the world, giving back. Kat, with mental illness, and Juanita for social justice, and creating a place for underrepresented artists. How do you feel that your DMD skills have contributed to your ability to make a change? And I would even expand that a little bit, because I know, Juanita, you had the almost human rights minor, and your other coursework. So both in and out of DMD, how do you feel that those skills have affected your ability to make an impact? And it could be logistical, or it could be more in your heart.
I can take this one first if you want, Juanita. So I think all of us DMD students have this inherent desire to really tell stories and really care about people and community. And in all of the classes, I think that professors really instilled this empowerment to be able to use that passion and harness it to be able to communicate those stories in whatever means we choose. So whether that's a game design, web design, video, photography, some of the skills that I use every day now are from Joel's interaction design class and Brian's web design courses in my new digital product management role. And being able to ensure that the designs that I'm making are fully accessible and are, made in a way that the user is going to be able to understand the message and be able to, reach these people and make a change. All of the different skills that we've learned, whether it's social listening, getting an understanding on what, people are talking about and how to make a change, or whether or not it's, a video class and being able to understand how to film and tell someone's stories. I took film class with Catherine Massoud when I was in DMD, and was able to tell a story about an individual who was transitioning from female to male and their struggles on the UConn campus, and having that experience hands-on and being able to tell someone's story and get feedback from someone who is like an industry professional and a phenomenal filmmaker, as well as all of the professors at DMD, really helped me hone my skills in storytelling and be able to apply through and through different mediums. So being able to take that lens that I'm using in photography and video, but also then apply it into a web context or an analytics context, and being able to just really merge everything together to feel empowered and tell the stories. So I think the faculty does a really good job in that they're all really passionate and they do their own work too, and they really want you to succeed and follow on your passions too.
Yeah, I agree with everything Kat said. From every position that I've had from since graduating from UConn, like I use my skills, the hard skills and the soft skills that I've gotten from DMD in every single role, every single day. So whether it's, doing web development, updating websites, designing, to producing marketing content, both traditional and digital. Every single role has like involved all of these different things. Social media skills, producing videos. Over this pandemic, actually, what really I think helped keep us connected was like we dove into the live stream arena and live producing events. And so I was so much ahead of the curve because I was already so familiar with arts and tech in that way. And so definitely the skills in DMD like helped me sort of like really hop onto that curve and like dive into this space where I'm learning how to be an audio engineer now. I'm learning how to produce an event, both live stream and a live audience at the same time. And so like all of these different things, like these skills come in handy every day, not just in my professional work, but even in just like personal projects. When the Black Lives Matter marches were going on, I was out on the street doing documentary photography, which is actually one of my very first passions, and that actually got me into the School of Fine Arts was photography. So doing that work, I helped with a project over the pandemic that was just, I produced a website and helped curate content that was documenting people's stories and experiences through the pandemic. So just being able to do projects and things like that as well. So it's just the skills I've gained from DMD is something I appreciate so much, and love working in this space, and being able to use these tools every single day is amazing.
Yay, that makes me so happy, because we always talk about, that we really aspire in the department to give people not only the technical skills, but the aesthetic and importantly, those soft skills about, how to just navigate the world. And we do hear back so often from employers and intern supervisors about how really well prepared our students are. So it's great to hear it from both of you, right, directly as well. Well, I mean, here we are, 3 women, and we have to acknowledge the fact that, technology is often a very white male dominated field. What have been some of the more challenging parts of getting to where you are? I mean, have you had any obstacles in moving your career forward, or have you felt really empowered? And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that's probably why, like one of the reasons I work in the independent space, and being an independent curator and producer, I just have a little bit more autonomy over sort of the projects and the people that I work with. And I think it's probably one of the reasons I've shied away from more of like corporate work or, working for bigger companies. There was definitely earlier in my career when I was like senior year, just trying to like graduate and figure out jobs, where I was thinking about working for agencies or thinking about, corporate jobs. And I think, I applied for a lot of things, and there were just times where I just didn't hear anything back. And there's always that in your back of the mind, and you're wondering, is it because I'm a woman? Is it because I'm Black? You can't help but think about these things, because I'm like, I know my resume is great. Like, I should at least get an interview. I worked in career development, so I knew very well how to curate my resume, my digital portfolio. And so I was just like, what is it? And so that's just always something that's a little bit in the back of your mind. You wonder, if I had put a different name on my resume, would I have at least gotten a call? If I didn't put my picture on there, would you, so there's always that question. Fortunately, again, because I work so much in the independent space, I haven't had to deal with it too much in my work, because I'm usually around other artists and other people. So I really enjoy that. I've thought about it too, if I go and work in the museum space, what that would be like. But I really love my autonomy and independence. So yeah, this is the space I enjoy being in.
Yeah, I have, I've experienced being the only female photographer in the room many times before. And it's definitely, when I first started, it was definitely intimidating, but I think, as I got more and more confident in my skills, I was, happy to be the only female and kind of bring in other females and women who wanted to, get involved and show their skills. I think one of the biggest challenges for me has been just a self challenge of getting that rejection in the creative world. There are many individuals looking to make their break into the creative industries, and knowing sometimes that rejections are not a reflection on your skills and just may not be the right fit. And you want to find a position that is in line with your values and something that the company also values you too. I'm very fortunate to work at a company now that really has a strong focus for DE&I, and I work on an all-female digital product team, actually. So it's great to see the emphasis of females in the technology field and it continue to grow. There's definitely still a lot more work that needs to be addressed to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table. As storytellers, we're better storytellers when we work together and we have those different perspectives. So I think it's our job to ensure that we speak up and try to bring people to the table that may not have the opportunity.
Yeah, and thanks to both of you for creating that space, literally and figuratively, for those in your lives and in your careers. So this is a good transition, actually, to think about those other jobs along the way, because you both kind of fought for creating and finding the position you really love, both pretty young in your careers yet, but you had some, that, as we said, the nonlinear branches along the way. So what were some of the other things? Because I think, for students out there, it's easy to think I'm going to get that one job that's perfect right on graduation, but there's definitely a path that kind of goes along to help you figure out what that job is, which may not have been what you thought it was when you applied for it. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think I really, when making these choices and trying to figure out what's the right fit for me, I always have a longer, term plan of where I think I'm going. But I think the most important thing is this a space I'm going to be happy working in? And so as Kat mentioned, it's really important for me to do work that I'm passionate about and I believe in. And so for example, if I was to work at an ad agency, I don't think I'd do well, just doing a campaign on lotion. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So when you're working on campaigns or things that it's something that's really important. So as Kat mentioned, if it's something for mental health, that's something that, okay, there's a mission behind it. So in every role that I take is, I look at is there a mission behind the work that I'm doing? That's something that's really important for me. So it could be something big or small, but what is the mission and motivation behind the work that I'm doing? into like who's the community that I'm working with and working for. That's really important to me as well. So a lot of the roles I've taken, like I enjoy working at colleges and working in universities. It's an environment and space that I really enjoy being in. So I always look for jobs at colleges and universities first. That's like one of the things that like, that's my go-to. You know, what the role may be could vary, but I like working in that space. So like, that's, you know, one thing for me. Same thing with like libraries and other spaces. So I kind of have like these little niches that I know I really enjoy being in, and the space is really important for me. Also, that's something that's really important is like, what is the work-life balance? Like, I enjoy my free time. I enjoy being able to be creative. I enjoy a laid back, you know, environment. So that's also something I look for. So those are sort of like the things where I'm like, okay, what's the mission? What's the space like? Who I'm going to be working with? And then as I've like started to like actually narrow my kind of like focus, now I'm really looking at like, okay, I love producing events. I love producing like videos and film. And so like, I'm starting to like narrow into this space, and like, that's the work that I really want to do, curating. And when I was first graduating, it was definitely a lot broader. I was like, okay, if I could do anything in like marketing or like digital, I was kind of like, you know, throwing my hat around the ring. And then, so over these years, it's been sort of like narrowing down, and I'm like, I'm really starting to like figure out like the actual work that I really like want to be doing. But it's all just trial and error. It's taking different positions, and like, if something sounds cool in that moment, try it, see where it goes. And one of the, a really great quote, I don't remember where it's from or who said it, was keep saying yes until you're no, right? Like if you're willing to try it, say yes, until you hit that no, and you're like, you know what, I think this is not the thing for me. And so I definitely encourage just trying different roles. If it sounds interesting, if it sounds like an opportunity to learn something new or gain new skills or meet new people, take a swing at it and see where you go. And, you know, the worst thing what happen is like, you realize that's not what you want to do. And that's one thing off your list.
That's right. You use it to eliminate. If you don't know exactly what, you can go that way too. Kat, how about you? Similar?
Yeah, exactly. The trial and error is, I totally resonate with that, Juanita. My first internship ever was as a market research analyst. And since then I've had so many different careers, job opportunities that, you know, each of them I had learned a little bit more about myself and where I wanted to be and what I really valued. And I think at the time when I was in undergrad and even grad school, there's almost like this pressure to have a really great job lined up right after you graduate and have it be like a dream job, like a Google or Facebook or whatever, you know, is in your relative field. That's like the top job. But as Juanita was was saying about, you know, really understanding what you value, that work-life balance, you know, being surrounded by people who challenge you and help you grow, and being in an environment where you're happy. That's something that I didn't really think about when I was starting as an undergrad, and something I've learned throughout each role I've had and narrowed into what really makes me happy and what work I feel like is most I'm most passionate about and making the biggest difference. And, you know, not everybody necessarily needs to have a job where they feel like they're making the biggest difference, but what do you value and what do you want to take out from the work that you do, and having that balance. So I had started in analytics, but I had hopped around I worked for Connecticut Public as an intern when I was in undergrad, when I was really interested in video production and photography. I had worked in marketing and events for the Central Connecticut Chambers of Commerce. I got really involved with Digital Media Connecticut when I was a grad student, which is a collaborative of Connecticut higher education institutions that really want to build this pipeline. So definitely recommend checking them out if you haven't heard of them already. And I had volunteered with the mental health nonprofit that Heather had mentioned, To Write Love on Her Arms. But then I had wound up, after searching and applying to so many positions, I ended up taking a role as an analyst at AMP Agency in Boston, and was able to apply a lot of the digital media skills that I had learned through the social media and analytics command center. And I loved being able to take on that role, but I realized I was missing something in just focusing on analytics and not being as creative and really, telling those stories. So I started to look again and again, narrow down, what do I like about this position? What do I not like about this position? Where do I feel like I could really thrive? And that ultimately led me to the ad council, where I could tap into both the creative side of my brain and the analytical side of my brain.
Yeah.
And but to Juanita's point, I think it's important to really think about what makes you happy. And, every position that you have, you're going to learn what you like and what you don't like, and being able to pivot. It's okay to say no, this isn't for me, and say yes to a different opportunity. You never know what doors will open.
Yeah. And the job doesn't have to be forever. Like, if you're taking this, for the experience, do it for the experience. There's been jobs. So after I left hygienic in terms of like my gallery associate role, I actually went back to them and put in a proposal to be a curator in residence there, which was something they've never had before. They have artists in residence, but I was like, you know what, it'd be really cool to be able to live here and work on curating. And so like, that was just something that I put together myself. It was a temporary thing, something I did for a year, but it was really a great experience for me to build something on my resume and try something new. And so I think there's like this idea that, like you said, Kat, like you get that job out of college and that's your job and that's it. And I think now we're in this age where especially millennials and Gen X, like we're at jobs for 2-3 years and then we may move on to something else. So a position also is not forever. We're not staying at jobs for 20 years anymore. So just also something to think about as well.
Yeah. And it's cool because with the skills that you gain in working with technology that's ever changing,
yeah,
you're even more flexible to sort of find that right fit.
Yeah.
One that makes you really happy. Well, what do you think, thinking back to UConn days, what do you believe was most helpful in helping to prepare for your future? What kind of experiences that you had, and thinking about our audience being current students, what things should they be looking out for to do while they're on campus?
Yeah, I think hands-on experience, whether it's in the classroom or out of the classroom. I think the student agency, the social media and analytics command center, and the other opportunities that DMD has, take those classes, get that real one-on-one client experience, because that is totally invaluable to be able to build those soft skills like communication, listening, and then also like how to use the software, whether it's using TalkWalker for social analytics or just making a presentation to be able to present to the client. And also getting involved outside of the classroom in those opportunities. So in undergrad, I was involved with UCTV in the marketing department. I know there's a big involvement with UConn film from DMD, and I think that's a great way to, share your passion with other DMD students and other students who are not in the DMD program. Make some films that you wouldn't necessarily make in class, and also network, not just networking for networking, like Juanita was alluding to, networking and actually really building and fostering these connections. I've seen so many people from the film club who now, after they graduate, they still work on films together, which is really awesome to see. But getting involved, I was also able to do some photography for NEAG and help with Huskython, and that's helped me in my photography work and freelancing, and being able to transfer those skills, getting client experience, being able to send emails and be professional, and just really getting those opportunities to work with other people, whether it's in or out of the classroom, are so invaluable from the soft skills perspective and the technical skills perspective, and then building that community of creators. That's one thing that I think, Juanita, you'll agree with me, that after you graduate, we want to build that community of artists, because we're no longer so close to our UConn community.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that Kat said, that out of classroom experience, whether it's a club, it's a campus job, it's really going to be important for you to develop those soft skills, as well as figure out the space that you want to work in, right? And so these skills that we have can literally apply to anything. Like, the skills that you're getting from DMD, whatever position you're going to get, are going to be invaluable, right? So then it's like, well, what do I want to do with these skills? Like, what do I want to apply them for? And so like, I think it's that out of classroom experience, whether you're with a club or with a different organization, is where you're figuring out like how you can actually use those skills in a space that's important to you. That's really cool. And so just some things that I did, I was part of Poetic Release when I was at UConn. Not a poet myself, but I seem to never like attract poets, and I love being around them. And so like I did photography for some of their events and hung out with them. And lo and behold, when I in my career, that became one of the things that I'm known for, is like producing these poetry events and festivals, and that became part of my job, right? And so it's like it's these different experiences that really come back later. The things that you enjoyed and have so much passion for, you figure out a way to make that part of your work. And that's something that I've always, strived to do. I'm like, I'm really passionate about, human rights or going to protests. How can I use this in my professional work? Or I love poetry and being around artists. And like, so how can I use this in my professional work? And so that's sort of always what I had in like my background, in my back of my head. And I was at UConn. I was like, I knew what I had to do for my skills. It was like, what was the sort of like the way to apply it to? And so that's what I was always searching for. And also just do things for fun. There's a lot of just fun opportunities. If you can do one of the service break trips, I got to go to Costa Rica. Also did photography when I was there. So that was an opportunity again to use some skills. And I loved it so much that I actually developed my own internship and went back again to Costa Rica, a different location, for 5 weeks. And so I connected with a nonprofit there, and they needed help with digital media. And so I helped a little bit with social media. I did some video for them. And so that again was an opportunity to take these hard skills that I was gaining from DMD and apply it to something that I was really passionate about, working with nonprofits, working with an organization whose mission that I really believed in, and helping them with these skills while also getting to travel at the same time. So finding creative ways where you can put all these things that you're passionate together and utilize your skills. It's a really interesting experience, and UConn offers so many opportunities for you to experience different things. So definitely take advantage of the campus and the people and the resources there.
That's really good advice. We've got, I want to encourage everyone in our audience to type some questions in. And while you're thinking about what you want to ask as follow-up for Kat and Juanita, put it in the chat box. And then after that, we will break into breakout sections. But, we kind of got into this a little bit, but I'd like to offer you both the opportunity to think about what kind of advice you have for students or recent graduates who are looking to, get into the field or do something similar to what you're doing. What do you think?
I can go, Juanita. So yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit before, but really following your passion and soaking up all of the opportunities that you're given. Seek out opportunities, get involved, and understand that no journey is linear. Even if it seems like someone else's journey is linear and they have the perfect opportunity, you're exactly where you're meant to be right now, and you're going to be able to figure out, yes, this makes me happy. No, it doesn't. What do I need to grow? Where do I want to be challenged and create the work that I feel most compelled to create? So I think really, self-reflection and just taking advantage of all the opportunities, saying yes to opportunities that seem aligned, even if it's just a sliver, you never know where that can lead you to. And also, take advantage of the opportunity while you're at UConn to connect with your DMD professors. They're all really
Yes.
amazing, established artists themselves, and the community of UConn as a whole, because it's a great community that will continue to support you even after you leave. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, if you don't see an opportunity that you want or fits your needs, don't be afraid to create it. That's something that I've done many times. Even now that I think about it, probably led to the entrepreneurship thing, is when I don't see something, I'm like, how can I create this? So again, a couple examples were the Costa Rica trip. The second time I created that internship, it wasn't something that existed. And I reached out to people to form this internship. I also did that again when I did another internship with a filmmaker in North Carolina. Again, it wasn't a set internship. It was something where I used resources. I reached out to a faculty in human rights, and she connected me with someone else, and we formed this internship together. So there were so many times in my experience, whether undergrad or after grad, where, you know, I wanted to do something. I had this idea and it wasn't quite the opportunity there that I wanted. And so don't be afraid to reach out to people, use those networks and those resources to say, hey, I have an idea. Can I do this? Can I create this? Can I work with you? Even if that thing doesn't exist yet, you know, reach out to people. People are actually more gracious to help than you think they are. And so, yeah, just don't be afraid to go out there and forge that path.
Excellent advice. We have, and I will say, as you know, we always say the DMD family just goes on forever. So once you graduate, you're still part of the clan. Now, Lexi has a question. Do any of you know anything about UI UX design? Do you use that all in your careers?
Yeah, definitely. As a digital product manager, first and foremost, we want to make sure our websites are being built in a way that provides the user with the most optimal experience and, you know, gets them the information that they need. At the Ad Council, we actually have a user experience committee that focuses on UX and UI design, and we're able to tap into members in that committee who are, you know, subject matter experts and professionals at leading companies to provide us with feedback on some sites. So recently, I was able to get feedback on one of the sites that we're launching next week that I can't talk too much about yet, to be able to talk about the user journey and make sure that it's going to be accessible for this specific audience. We also tapped into them for another campaign that I'm on for Release the Pressure, getting their opinion when we were doing a revamp to the site to make sure that, you know, it's mobile accessible. If there's any optimizations, we can really learn and understand how to make sure that the technology is, you know, accessible and moving forward and is just providing the user with the most compelling experience and meeting them where they are. So I don't get to do it personally, but I get to work with individuals, and I think it's so important, especially in an accessibility standpoint, really thinking with accessibility first and making sure that digital experiences are accessible and that is the norm.
Yeah, everything Kat said. I still do web work a bit with all the projects that I do. I usually have to develop a website. So user experience is always one of the things that's in my first forefront when I'm thinking about web development and design. And I have some contract work that I'm doing next year, and we're really thinking about accessibility for this website. So I might be reaching out to you, Kat, for just a little bit of a few questions.
I just joined our accessibility task force at work, so I'm learning too.
So anyone else have a question from our remote audience? Anyone? All right, so I know you're all waiting here anxiously. You're welcome, Lexi. Anxiously to get into the breakout rooms. I did want to give a shout out for those of you in Connecticut, which is probably mostly everyone here. Juanita has an exhibition opening at the Cummings Art Center at Connecticut College in New London. It's called Nappy, and it's a multimedia exhibition exploring the culture narrative of Black hair through the African diaspora. The exhibition will weave a story on the social, political, and spiritual significance of the Black body and Afro hair, connecting past to present. And the opening for that is coming up on October 23rd at 5 o'clock. So definitely come out if you can. You can meet Juanita. I'm sure she'll be there in person, as well as in the virtual breakout room. And I do want to give a thanks to all our event sponsors, the Center for Career Development and UConn alumni, and thanks to everyone for attending. And thanks a gazillion to our two amazing panelists, Kat and Juanita. You've left me totally inspired, and I'm so excited. And Juanita, I can't wait to follow up with you and get to know you more.